Consider this. You either are or you know someone who is a serious animal lover. You might also know someone who loves animals and tried to adopt a pet and then found that process did not work so well. How do we know which animals are suited for which owners and the other way around? We're about to find out. I'm Yvonne Greer, and my guest is Lauren Malmberg, animal protection advocate here in Central Illinois. Next on Consider This. On the face of it, it seems like surprising a young boy or girl with a kitten or a puppy would be a fantastic gift idea for a special occasion. But if you or the child isn't ready to receive that pet, or if the pet isn't exactly well suited for you either, it could make for disastrous consequences. My guest here on Consider This is a woman whose name is almost synonymous with animal welfare here in Central Illinois. Lauren Malmberg, welcome.
Thank you.
So how does a family begin to decide if a pet is right for them?
Well, a lot of things should come into consideration. First of all, if you're prepared to make that kind of financial commitment, the time and effort involved in owning a pet, because it's not just getting a dog in the first couple of days and then you are everything goes smoothly. You need to be prepared to deal with any kinds of issues that come up, as well as the financial ramifications of having an additional member of the family, which is essentially what they are.
Because your whole life really changes with the addition of this extra pet.
I've heard people say that getting a puppy was worse than having a baby as far as the adjustment period goes and the time commitment and all of that. So it can be, it sounds, maybe a little bit silly to some people, but it is a huge commitment, and it can really affect your life.
And you hit three big issues in your first answer there, and that was time, effort, and money. So let's talk about those three.
Sure.
Financially, you could go to the animal welfare shelter and adopt a pet for a minimal expense, correct?
That's correct. And essentially, the initial cost that you pay for the pet is probably the least of your commitment financially. Even if you pay a couple $1,000s for an animal, that still may be small potatoes when you compare it to the lifetime financial commitment you'll have to make, which includes annual veterinary care. It includes if there are any issues that arise, if your animal becomes sick or if your animal becomes injured or comes up with some sort of a chronic problem, in addition to the food and all of the other accoutrement that goes on with having a pet, their beds, where you're going to confine them, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of financial considerations long beyond the initial cost.
Is there a ballpark number that you would recommend families be willing to spend before adopting a pet?
I think with some of the most recent numbers I've seen is anywhere between $500 and $750 a year, as you average that off. But that doesn't include, when you initially get that pet, you'll want to have your animal spayed or neutered, the vaccinations, the registration, and so forth. And hopefully you're going to be taking it to an obedience class. So that first year, 2 years, that can be
the greatest expense,
the biggest expense up front, and getting your home set up for having a pet, having a crate or having a fenced-in yard, all of those things as far as a dog goes. Cats can be somewhat less expensive because their needs are somewhat different, but you still have to accommodate those beginning items.
So now let's talk time. If you are someone who both parents go to work, the kids go to school, who's with the pet all day?
Right, and a lot of consideration needs to be given to what age of an animal you want to get. If you're getting an 8-week-old puppy, you need to be aware that that puppy's going to have to be housebroken, and the easiest way to do that is crate training. But an animal that age usually can't go much longer than a couple of hours without having to be let out to be relieved. So if you're getting a puppy and you're gone 8 hours or 10 hours a day, you need to make some arrangements to have somebody in and out to let that puppy out. So sometimes an older pet, and I'm not talking a 10-year-old animal, but even something that is 9 months to a year is going to make a much better choice initially for somebody who's gone 8 to 10 hours a day than an 8-week-old puppy.
Because that dog is
acclimated and is physically capable of holding its bladder for 8 hours. A puppy just simply can't do that any more than a baby could.
I'm with the puppy.
So, a lot of people think too that getting a puppy, allows you to let your puppy grow up, and they like to get a puppy when they have a year-old baby.
And be a part of the family, yes.
And the puppy and the child will grow up together. Well, that's not how it works, because the puppy grows up much quicker than the baby. So by the time the baby, say you get a 8-week-old puppy, and at the time you have a year-old child, by the time the child is 4 or 5 and actually can be a part of the animal's care and so forth, you're getting up to a point where your animal is getting into its middle-aged or older years. It's not a puppy anymore. They don't grow up at the same rate. So
I used to have a friend that would say, if you have a young child, get an older dog. If you have an older child, get a younger dog. Would you agree with that?
I think as a rule of thumb, that's a good idea. It certainly takes into consideration all of the things that can go wrong. 8-week-old puppies and babies just don't do well together. Babies or toddlers can hurt a puppy unintentionally, but they're grabbing tails, they're pulling ears, they're stepping on them, they're falling on them, that kind of thing. Whereas a dog that's a little more in size and a little more outside the chewing stages and so forth, they're probably going to acclimate better to a household that has a toddler in it. Whereas an older child can understand how to deal with a puppy, and that might be a better choice for that puppy to grow up with that older child.
So let's talk about the effort and energy it takes to have a new pet in the home. I mean, at first it's like, oh, we'll play with it for a little bit, and then they just don't go away. It's like they need that constant attention.
You can't turn it off like you can turn off a video game or a television. And they are, completely inconvenient. So if convenience is an issue for you, this is, you need to take that into consideration, because you have to give up time to go home and let the dog out or go home and feed the dog. You can't be gone for 8 hours a day and then on into the evening unless somebody's available to take care of the pet in the meantime. If the animal needs to get up in the middle of the night, it needs to get up in the middle of the night. So there's a lot of convenience issues that come into play when you have a pet. It's not just that you get them and you throw them in the backyard and you don't think about them again. They become a part of your life, and you have to adjust your life to meet those things. They're going to be are they going to be getting on the couch with you? Are they going to be sleeping in your bed? There are all kinds of things to consider that, come into play. You can't just get up and run out of town for the weekend if you have a dog at home without making arrangements.
I have been pestered quite a bit in my house to get a pet, and I have not felt ready yet myself. And for many of these reasons, I really want to be ready before we take that step. But the number one complaint that I hear from new pet owners that are friends of mine or whatever, say, they chew everything.
Right, they do. Puppies do. Puppies are great chewers, and you have to either redirect or eliminate their opportunities. It's not a good idea to be thinking that you're going to be disciplining them out of it. You have to remove what is attractive to them and provide them with something that's acceptable for them to chew. So that's another, it's much like parenting.
Yeah.
You have to be kind of on top of it all the time. And if you let things go a couple of times, then next thing you know, you have your leather couch chewed up. So, or your whole, you've lost a great pair of shoes because
I've
the
been
puppy
there.
got a hold of them.
Just at friends' homes, I've lost shoes.
But the easiest way to deal with that is to, eliminate their access to it and provide them with something that's acceptable for them to chew, because chewing is a natural instinct that they need to do. So you just need to direct it in the right way.
So let's talk different breeds. Are there certain breeds that might be more accommodating or fitting with a particular lifestyle? So let's say you have the situation where both parents work and the kids are going off to school. Are there certain breeds that do better on their own and some that need more attention than others?
I would say more along the lines of if you're looking at a particular breed, you would look at the qualities that animal has and decide if your lifestyle meets that, rather than trying to pick a breed, go the opposite way. For example, if you think that a Border Collie is the particular breed for you, then I would think that you would want to have a very active lifestyle, because Border Collies, Aussies, any of these herding dogs, they need a job to do and they need lots of activity. So that's not a dog that you're going to get home, take home and it's going to lay on the couch all day and then be completely relaxed when you get home from work. That's not the way it's going to be. So not necessarily breed specific, but I would look at the animal's temperament and behavior. A lot of them, there are some characteristics that are common throughout a breed, but a lot of these animals are also individuals. And if you have an active lifestyle, you would pick a dog that has an active personality and can keep up with you, and if you've got things to do with it, like you spend a lot of time outdoors or you jog and you want a dog to run with you, or those kinds of things. But if you like sitting on the couch watching TV and watching a movie, you want a dog that, and perhaps this will be a bit older, a dog that is
snuggle up and
is just thrilled with laying on the couch and watching TV with you. So you need to look at their activity levels. And of course their personalities, if you mesh with them. Some dogs, my friend Dee Dee says the dog picks you.
And so if you were in the if you are ready and your family's ready and your kids are ready and you're ready to get your first pet, what's the difference between going to a breeder and, say, going to an animal welfare shelter?
Well, if you are a person who knows exactly what they want, I want a 3-month-old Great Pyrenees out of this particular line, then by all means find a reputable breeder and take a look at their latest litter of puppies. But if you're looking for a family pet, a pet that, and you're not concerned about a particular breed or conformation or anything like that, then why wouldn't you go to an animal shelter where you can see a variety of animals? Not only a variety of breeds and types, sizes, but also a variety of personalities and ages. I mean, there's all kinds of differences, and you can walk in there thinking, I think I want, a huge black lab, and then you can walk out with a medium-sized red chow mix because that dog
chose you.
Yeah, chose you, or fit what you needed. So you get a lot more variety, a lot more choice. Most animal shelters have some sort of evaluation or assessment program where they can give you some insight into the animal's behavior while it's there at the shelter. They can give you a bit of its background in some cases. Plus, the people at the shelter typically have been with that dog at least for some period of time and can say, hey, I've seen this. The dog keeps its cage real clean. It looks like it might already be housebroken. I see that the dog does get along with other dogs, doesn't get along with other dogs. I mean, you can get some information, and most of the shelters and their staff are really interested in making sure that they get a good match where the animal's going to stay in the home and not be returned or passed on to someone else. So their goal is to find the right dog for you.
Let's talk about that, because sometimes you do get a pet and you discover it's not a good fit for you or for the pet, and then the pet gets returned. What is that process like for the pet?
It depends on why the animal's being returned. Sometimes there are truly legitimate reasons for returning an animal. Certainly aggression is one. And I don't care whether you're an animal shelter or a breeder or whatever, you cannot always predict an animal's behavior. They're animals and they're like people. They're individuals and they're unpredictable. So if you find that you take an animal home and you see some aggression behaviors or things that make you concerned about being safe, either you or your family or your other pets, by all means don't live with that. That's an animal that should probably be returned and fully disclosed to whoever you're returning it to why, so that they can make a decision about the animal's future. But if you're returning an animal for because you don't have time for it, or you're having trouble housebreaking it, there are some resources out there that can help you. If the dog's jumping up on the kids or it's barking all the time, if you want to make a commitment to fixing that, there are lots of resources out there. Besides the internet, I mean, locally, we have our local Humane Society and our animal shelter who can help you with some tips on how to deal with that. You can consult your veterinarian who can give you some tips. So if it's a matter of that, returning the dog isn't going to be good probably for you or for the dog, because you're probably going to be looking for another dog in another month, and you may have the same problem all over again. So
unless there's some medical issue or aggressiveness issue, or returning should be last resort.
Well, I don't want to say that because I don't want somebody keeping a dog that they don't want.
Got it.
But keep in mind, that's why considering all these things before you take the animal home is so important, because it is hard on those pets when they come back. My last dog I got because he was returned to the shelter 3 times. None of the times was for anything to do with him. And on his last time, he just gave up, and he ended up sitting in the cage and staring at the wall, and he wouldn't interact. Oh. And I thought, well, okay, we'll just take him home. And and he lived with me for 11 and a half years, and he was a wonderful dog. And he was returned for what I consider to be silly reasons. He was a Great Dane, Irish Wolfhound mix, so he was huge. And the first person returned him because he was too big. But they knew what he was when they took him home.
Yes.
That's why it's important to think about these things before you take them home.
You worked with the Peoria Animal Welfare Shelter for 35 years and are retired now. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Were you always someone who had a love for animals?
Yes, as a child, my parents had dogs, and in fact, my parents had a number of Great Danes, and then we had horses, and I essentially grew up in a rural environment where we were around horses and cattle and dogs and so forth. And I went to University of Illinois and just couldn't find my niche there as far as what I wanted to do, and I came home and found a job, and that wasn't working out, and I saw an ad for a position at the city of Peoria, and I went down, and I just remember the lady saying, "Oh, I see you like animals. Would you like to work at the animal shelter?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I would." I never heard of an animal shelter before. I didn't know what they did, but I thought, I want to do that.
But animals is in there, so
Yeah, I'm going to go down there. And so that was in 1980, and I was there for 35 years, right? And I knew when I walked in the door that that's where I was supposed to be.
Now, you and I met, I hate to say out loud, some years ago.
A few.
And at the time, I was a rookie reporter, and I remember starting my story with some pictures of the animals in the cage at the welfare shelter, and the lead line said, "These animals will be dead by the end of the week." Mm-hmm. And I caught a lot of flack about that it was possibly too harsh. And at the time, it was my intent to show what I had learned from you, and that was we had too many animals that had not been spayed or neutered and who did not have loving homes to care for them, and the city/county was not going to be able to take care of them. What is that like now? Do we still have such high numbers of, do we have a need for euthanasia if the pets don't get adopted?
Actually, we have made such huge strides. When I entered this field in 1980, I think they were saying that there were 15 to 16 million dogs and cats being euthanized in shelters across the nation every year. We're down to between 3 and 4 across the nation. So our spay-neuter efforts, I'm talking nationally, have made a huge difference, as well as all of those stories, the stories like yours, plus the nice, fuzzy, and warm stories, have made a difference and made how we treat animals more of a concern for society as a whole. I think people are recognizing that animals deserve, you don't have to love animals to consider that they deserve respect and that we're responsible for them. And I think that view has changed. And so combined with the spay-neuter efforts, I think all of that has brought the whole idea of animal welfare to the forefront. And it's kind of cool that your dog is spayed or neutered now. I mean, everybody's dog is spayed or neutered pretty much. And it's kind of cool that you got your dog from the animal shelter. So we have made huge strides in that regard. There will always be animals euthanized. There will always be dogs and cats euthanized. And that's because some of these animals are too sick or elderly to be placed for their benefit. And then as far as dogs in particular go, there are a number of very seriously aggressive and dangerous dogs that should not, under any circumstances, be put back out into a community. Those dogs will need to be euthanized, and that will always take place. We may be at critical mass as far as the number of animals being euthanized in our country. There doesn't seem to be as much of an overpopulation program, and of course this is regional. In Illinois, you are hard-pressed to find puppies in Illinois in animal shelters, whereas 15 years ago, my puppy room was filled with litters of puppies.
Why is that?
Because we're spaying and
Spay and
neutering.
Ah.
And no, I know other states, Oklahoma, Kentucky, some of the more lower populated states are having bigger issues, and they transfer in, but the animal welfare world is picking up the slack. They're transferring animals from Oklahoma to Illinois, where there's a need for puppies, and Oklahoma has a glut of puppies, so we're transferring. That's the kind of thing that never took place 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So we have made huge strides, and I don't know that there is still there is not the overpopulation problem that there used to be. So fortunately, fewer animals are losing their lives in shelters for space. Now, if they're being euthanized in shelters, it's usually for a very good reason.
And that's encouraging news.
It's tremendously encouraging. And we were very proud in Peoria that we were able to dramatically lower our euthanasia rate, increase our adoption rate, and find places for more and more animals because we had some great partnerships with other organizations. So there have been a lot of things that have come into play that have made this work for the animals.
Now, switching gears here for just a moment, it has become very cool to have a pet amongst celebrities. And we turn on the television and we see people with like little tiny dogs in purses and getting their own little ice cream cones or whatever. Your thoughts on that?
Well, on one hand, I mean, there are those celebrities, and I'll just throw one out, Rachel Ray, who is a very strong supporter of animal welfare, and she has she's known for having pit bulls as her pets, and she makes them a big part of her life. And I think that she is a tremendous advocate for animal welfare. On the other hand, some of these celebrities who are walking around with the little teacup animals in their purses and treating them like humans, I think is doing a bit of disservice. First of all, it's making it, again, a status thing and a cool bracelet to have or a pair of tennis shoes to have, and when the animal is through with giving up, you know, what it's giving to them status-wise, what happens to the animal? I get concerned about that. We don't need to have any more status symbols. You know, it's more serious than that. And I appreciate the fact that they want to take their pet on the airplane or whatever, but I just get concerned sometimes about the message that sends.
What's next for you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I remain in contact with our state associations, and I'm doing some work legislatively for them, as well as some additional things for some other groups. So I'm trying to keep busy. I generally teach at ICC in a semester and so forth. So those are the kinds of things. I'm kind of waiting to see what my next thing is going to be.
Do you have lots of pets still running around home?
No, I have one. I have one dog and 2 horses, and that's more than enough.
So walk me through. I've got a couple of kids and I'm ready. We're all ready for our pet, and we're going to go to the welfare shelter, animal welfare shelter, and we're going to choose a pet. What can I expect to happen when I get there?
Well, and it's going to vary from shelter to shelter because everybody is independent and everybody has their own rules. But typically, and what I would suggest is perhaps not taking the children the first time, because it is real easy to get in there and see the cutest little animal in the world, you know, this beautiful black Cocker Spaniel pup dog that, you know, the kids fall in love with and just insist on having, and that's not the right match because of, it might be a little bit nasty with kids or whatever, and it's hard for parents to say no. And so maybe the first couple of times mom and dad go in together, and
So the first glimpses should be practical, not emotional.
maybe take a look and say, you know what, these are the 3 that we're, you know, I don't want to bring the kids back, and maybe we could bring the kids out and not let them go back and pick from
see
the
all of-
smorgasbord, but say, here's 3 that we think might work. What do you guys think, kind of thing. That might be where I would start, because it really is emotional when they get in there and they see
They are
these
so
cute little guys. They
cute.
are. And you know, we used to laugh because people would open the door to the puppy room and all you would hear is this collective, oh. And they're not saying that when they're picking up puppy poop a couple of days later. So it can be really emotional, and I might start with that. And the internet is a tremendous boon right now for shelters and people who are looking alike, because you can go online, you can see pictures of them, and you can see little descriptions, and most shelters are doing this, whether it's on Pet Finder or their own website or Pet Harbor, and you can take a look and say, oh, well, they've got 3 or 4 here. I can go down there and take a look at all of them, and then.
And so when the pet chooses you and you choose the pet, you fill out some paperwork, pay a fee, and you're good to go?
Usually there might be a day or 2 wait depending on the surgery schedule, because most animals are spayed or neutered before they go home.
Okay.
Your first couple of days are probably going to be a real adjustment period, because the animal may have just been sterilized. They're going to get acclimated to the household and to the new people. I mean, these are people that, you know, they don't know you, you don't know them. So the first couple of days should be kind of quiet, but you can't expect them to be 100% with housebreaking or 100% with anything those first couple of days, because it's an adjustment period.
But from then on, your life together begins, and then you have those time, energy, and what was the third one?
Money.
Money, yes, the big one to look forward
The
to.
big one to some people. The time is another commitment, though, that a lot of people, you know, they're willing to pay money for it. They just don't have the time to commit. So
make sure those big 3 are in check. Money, time, and effort before you take that pet home.
And, you know, maybe a dog isn't the choice. Maybe a cat is the choice. Maybe a guinea pig is the choice. Maybe a ferret. I mean, there are a number of different animals that make good companion animals. It doesn't have to be a dog.
Very well said. Lauren Malmberg, thank you so much for being with us here
Thank
on
you.
Consider This, and thank you for being with us as well. Why don't we take a look now and see about our featured artist of the week.
We moved here 20 years ago, and I think the first Easter we were here in the Midwest, I saw an article in the local paper about a woman in Alpha, Illinois that carved eggshells. And I immediately got in touch with her, said, I have eggs. She was very gracious, invited me to her home and showed me what she did. I'm a doodler by nature, and if you doodle, this is the art form for you, because that's what it is. You take a shell and you move a drill around until you have a design that pleases you. And even at a very high rate of speed, it chips. So you're manipulating those chips into part of your design. You're doodling on the shell. And it's very, for me, it's very tension relieving, and it creates something beautiful in the end. This grew out of a time when we were living on a farm and had many, many different kinds of feathered friends. Piercing eggshells has been around for a while. I've seen people take a drill bit and worry it on the shell till a hole is created, and made a series of those holes into a design. But the tool I use is relatively new to the market, maybe 25 years on the market, or available at a price point that someone like me could afford to incorporate it into my toolbox. If you name it, I will put it on a shell. I will attempt to do anything, and have. Each type of bird lays a different sort of egg, and it has evolved based on where they nest and who they are. And I marvel every time I pick one up. There's organization in the universe, and I can see it in the variety of eggs that are on the planet.
My thanks to our featured artists of the week, and to my guest, Lauren Malmberg, animal welfare advocate here in Central Illinois. And of course, thanks to you for being with us on Consider This.